And let me just send out a reminder email to all of our attendees this evening. Let them know that we have opened up the webinar. Okay. Welcome, welcome everybody. As you come on in, feel free to say hello in the chat. Maybe tell us where you're calling in from. Something, if you already have a question for Catherine, you can go ahead and throw that in there. Why not? Yeah, I'm just pinging our attendees, letting them know that we have started. Someone said, hi from Raleigh, just down the road from Centennial. Awesome! Someone said, hi from South Carolina. I like that the Carolinas are well represented. That's great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to get some polls going just to as people come into the room. Our first question for you is, and some of you already answered it, do you live in North Carolina? Let's do another one. Are you part of the NC State community? And this can mean whatever you think it means. You could just be a fan of the Wolfpack. You could be an alum. You could be a current student. You could be a staff member, however you interpret that. Oh my gosh, we have 100% NC State community representation here. That's exciting. I'm going to end that poll, share those results. And some of you already answered live in North Carolina. Now I want to know, have you done citizen science before? And if you don't know what citizen science is, that's okay. We'll teach you. You're in the right place. Get those votes in. Oh my gosh, 100% of people have done citizen science before. Put the projects you've done in the chat. If you've done debris tracker, marine debris tracker, even better. We'll stop sharing those results. And we have some other polls, but we'll save those for later in the presentation when Deja gets to talk to you all about current events. So while we wait on people to come on in, I'm going to open up the NCSU homepage. So your one-stop shop for citizen science is this page. It'll get you going with featured projects, including marine debris tracker. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so you all can see it. So a big thank you to the NC State Citizen Science Campus and the Public Science Cluster for making this event possible. If you go to scistarter.org/NCSU home, and those of you who are watching on YouTube, feel free to type this into your browser as well, scistarter.org/NCSU-home. You can find the season lineup for Make It Count Mondays. We'll be back again in the spring semester. You'll find a tutorial customized for the NC State community, but anybody anywhere of any age could do this tutorial and learn something new about citizen science, which is public engagement and real research. And you'll find our featured project for the day, Marine Debris Tracker. We also encourage you when you're on this NCSU homepage to make a SciStarter account. It's kind of like your passport to discover all these different citizen science projects. We love connecting you with amazing projects like Marine Debris Tracker. And then at the very bottom of the page, you'll find some additional projects the NC State community, including some students, have flagged as being a particularly good fit for this group, as well as past recordings of Make It Count Monday. Oh my gosh, someone said hello in the forum. Welcome to students joining the Wolfpack in January 2021. We are excited to have you as part of the Citizen Science virtual campus. I love it. And you know, I also said hello on the page. I wanted to know, how's everyone's NC State CitSci experience been? So this is your page where you can find all sorts of different things for citizen science. People have done CocoRAs, Crowd the Tap, stuff with Rob Dunn. That means they've done some stuff with bugs, most likely. We do have somebody who's done Marine Debris Tracker. Very cool. All right. Well, that being said, I want to say pass the mic to my co-host, Deja Perkins, and she'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the news, and then she'll introduce our special guest from Marine Debris Tracker, Catherine Youngblood. So Deja, take it away.
Thanks, Caroline. Hey, everybody out there in the audience. Welcome back to Make It Count Monday. So glad you guys are joining us today. So this week, we are talking about a topic that I think infuriates most environmentalists and outdoor enthusiasts. So I don't know if you can guess what I'm hinting at, but we are going to start off with a few poll questions of our own. And so for the first one, I want to know how many of you in the audience get frustrated when you're out enjoying a walk and seeing plastic waste?
Everybody, get your votes in. We put yes, no, unsure, and no opinion. You're allowed to not have an opinion as well. Oh my gosh, everybody's frustrated. I'm going to end this poll and share the results. 100% frustration.
You know, I'm really not surprised. It's really something that infuriates me on a personal level. I think about all the times that I go out and I see Karen said, how about a heck yes option? Yes, we definitely needed the heck yes option. I know for myself, I'm so often frustrated whenever I go out in Chicago, which is where I am right now, and try to go birding along the lakeshore or just even in my own neighborhood. And I just see tons of trash outdoors, even in, the parks when there are like trash cans less than like 3 feet away. It's just like, what are you doing, people? But I know that I've been seeing an increased amount of trash right now since the pandemic has, happened. And so I'm just wondering for our next poll, how many of you all have ordered takeout since the pandemic began? Now, this may seem unrelated, but it's actually very related. And don't be ashamed if you have, because you are, of course, supporting our restaurant industry. There are many people that, are in the restaurant industry and thrive off that's where they get their income from. So don't be ashamed if you have, like me. I mean, I have, so don't be ashamed.
I definitely have, perhaps today. We have about, okay, I'm going to end the poll and share these results. So we have the majority yes, about 86% of the people with us today, and a few no's. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to chime in the comments. I'll be monitoring those. And if you have a question, I will not miss you. But feel free to put your answers to these poll questions in the YouTube comments as well. So we'll stop sharing the results.
All right, y'all. And so for our last question, we have one more. I'm wondering for those of you all who have either ordered takeout or have, participated in the outdoor dining. You don't have to respond. I'm not going to judge you, but I do want to know, have you noticed how restaurants have changed their serving practices since the pandemic began?
And for this one, feel free to answer that one in the chat. I'll start it off. One thing I've noticed is I think people have been including a lot more plasticware. I think partially that's because of, especially at the beginning of COVID, I know there were concerns with sanitation. And Catherine, this is foreshadowing, but I'm going to be asking you some questions about that during the Q&A portion. Every time we get to do an event with Catherine Youngblood from Marine Debris Tracker, I just pepper her with questions because I am intrigued by this issue. But like, for example, I used to get coffee a lot. I pay for very expensive coffee. That's just something I do. And I would always bring my reusable mug, but people have stopped accepting those during the pandemic, which makes sense. They may not want to touch it. They don't know the degree to which I'm like sanitizing it. I totally understand, but it does make me sad that I have my home littered with all these plastic coffee cups now. Let's see what the answers in the chat are. Someone said, I asked them not to give me disposable eatware and I bring my own. Like a napkin, etc. It doesn't always work though. Sometimes they send it anyway, and all the disposable plasticware drives me nuts. I have to concur. We have another yes. It looks like people have observed changes in the restaurant industry. And someone said, I used to be able to get takeaway and ceramic storage dishes that I own, but now that's impossible. I have the same exact experience. Deja, what about you?
Sorry if you hear a little background noise. My dog is going crazy in the background. But yes, I have most definitely seen changes. Judge me all you want, but I have been one of those people who go and have participated in outdoor dining once or twice. And I thought it was really interesting that everything was like individually wrapped, that even, you know, like you just get this nice little packet of your fork and your napkin and your fork and your napkin and
Oh no. Deja has her coworkers acting up.
and you know, just the different types of the way that everything is kind of served to you. Even when you're doing the outdoor dining, everything is served to you in a way that they won't have to wash anything or touch the things that you've touched, which I think is really problematic. And so it really made me rethink like where I'm choosing to eat or spend my money at during this time right now. I see someone in the comment mentions that at grocery stores that we can't even use our own reusable bags anymore, which is a huge thing, because I know there are so many people who do participate in that, and I do that myself, and it sucks for lack of a better word. But thank you all for participating in that. All of this ties directly into our comments, our topic this week. And so if you haven't guessed yet, we're actually talking about this increase of plastic pollution during COVID times right now. And so, like I said earlier, I've noticed when I've gone out that every utensil has been individually wrapped with some type of disposable utensil, which can't be recycled. And then we have every entree packed in either a single use, a biodegradable, or a reusable plastic container. And COVID-19 has triggered an estimated global use of 129 billion face masks and 65 billion gloves every single month. And according to an article in the Scientific American by David Ford, if we stitched together all of the masks that we've manufactured already and projected to be produced, we'd be able to cover the entire land mass of Switzerland. Which is a lot if you think about it. And this article was written back in August, I believe. And so if you think about how much things have changed since then, we already thought that everything would be over, but it hasn't been yet. So just think about how much that number is likely to have changed since then. And so if you think about it, pre-COVID, it was estimated that we had 8 million metric tons, which equates to about one garbage truck worth of plastic being dumped into our oceans every minute. So the total weight of that is equivalent to 90 aircraft carriers. And on top of that, models project that by 2050, there will be more plastic by weight than fish in the oceans, which is a huge problem. And remember, this is all pre-COVID. So I guess one of the questions is, like, where does all this waste go for producing all this plastic, especially now during the pandemic, where is all this stuff going? So aside from our streets, our parks, and clearly our oceans, in the Western world, most of it ends up in either landfills in North America or incinerated in Europe. And a very small amount gets recycled. So the US has about 9,000 recycling facilities, most of which are run by municipalities, which are tied to local budgets. And during this time, as states bear the brunt of COVID-19 related health and unemployment costs, some of those municipalities have suspended their recycling services. I'm not sure if you all have noticed any recycling being suspended in your communities, but that is a huge thing that's been going on because just, wanting to reduce costs. And so I think that we can't 100% be frustrated and place the blame on the restaurant industry because, like I said earlier, the reality is we all have taken unexpected financial losses this year and everyone is trying to stay afloat. And I just remember this huge argument that was going on in the beginning of the pandemic when people were just starting to create the reusable mask. I just heard so many conversations where the blame was being placed on people who were opting not to use reusable masks. And it was this huge argument. And it was a thing about people who were using these disposable masks, either, like, why aren't you using the reusable masks? Like, oh, maybe you don't have the money to purchase them. But then so there's this huge conversation around accessibility of the reusable masks and the cost of them. And then the masks became more easily found in stores and they become cheaper. And Still today, some people choose to wear disposable masks, and I can't fault them because I can say for myself, I definitely feel safer when I have on a disposable mask versus a reusable mask. But even that has its own issues aside from the amount of pollution that it's creating because of improper disposal. And so, if used properly, an August 2020 article by Silva et al. States that these surgical masks and gloves should not be worn longer than a few hours, and then they should be adequately discarded. So that means if you are choosing to use a disposable mask, you are using so many more masks and you're producing so much more waste if you use them properly. Now, like I said, not trying to place the blame on anyone, just trying to inform you guys that these masks should be adequately discarded to avoid cross-contamination. And so in this sense, several countries have tried to implement safety measures considering the disposal and potentially infected PPE. So for an example, in the article, they state that the Portuguese Environmental Agency recommended that all potentially contaminated PPE used by ordinary citizens should be disposed of as mixed waste, AKA not recyclable, in sealed and leak-proof garbage bags. And so that will hopefully be followed up with incineration facilities or daily landfilling. But I mean, think about it, that's just more and more trash being piled up if it's not being placed into incineration facilities if it is disposed of properly. And so several states in the US have stopped their recycling programs as authorities have been concerned about the risk of COVID-19 spreading in recycling centers and prioritizing both of the incineration option and the landfill option. And so the reduction and this waste cycling is just completely the opposite of, all of our sustainability goals. And even it's just contributing to the plastic waste pollution. And so I guess like one of the biggest and most mind-boggling things for me in this article was just the fact that these masks are actually created with materials such as polypropylene and polyethylene, and which are, really harmful materials, which can leach into the environment. And so these gloves and masks that are made out of non-woven materials and often incorporate those other polymers will likely degrade into smaller microplastic pieces, which is another issue that we have. And so I just think about the fact that all those micro plastics, the small plastic fragments that are less than 5 millimeters in length, that is often present in our soaps, our lotion, and sometimes even our clothes. And so I'm not sure how long these plastics take to degrade, but I often think about the fact that these plastic fragments are often found within the stomach content of the fish that we eat. So if you think about it, the plastic problem is kind of coming back to bite us in the butt. And so I know that I've been going over a lot of doom and gloom in this article. Notice how I didn't even mention the fact of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, that huge patch that we're always talking about. But I also want to help provide a few solutions. And so that article lists that improvement of municipal waste management, disinfection of medical PPE waste that allows for recycling, implementation of sustainable and rational use of protective equipment in healthcare and non-healthcare specific facilities. They also have solutions of implementing sustainable safety measures to guarantee the delivery goods and ensure services provisioning, promoting sustainable and safer consumption and production patterns for plastics, and creating synergisms between academia and government to increase public awareness towards the sustainable production, use, and disposal of plastics. Now, I'm not really sure how realistic these recommendations are, and I know a lot of them can't be done on an individual level unless we're using our voices and acting as advocates. But one thing we can all do is participate in this week's featured project. This week, we are talking about marine debris tracker and speaking with our special guest, Catherine Youngblood. Now, Catherine Youngblood is a research engineer at the University of Georgia New Materials Institute and the Citizen Science Director of the Citizen Science Director of the Debris Tracker app. In 2019, she traveled along the Ganges River as a member of National Geographic's Sea to Source expedition, using Debris Tracker to study the litter leakage of plastic waste in 10 communities along the river. She is passionate about finding upstream, collaborative solutions to plastic pollutions. So I would like to welcome Catherine to the show. We are super excited that you could join us this week. And before we dive deep into the Q&A portion of the show, I was wondering if you could tell us a story about the story behind Marine Debris Tracker.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So Debris Tracker is an open data citizen science project. So we focus on helping people and organizations come together to create a big picture of plastic pollution. So the app allows people to collect geospatial data on where exactly plastic pollution is in their own communities. And then all that comes together in a big database that is publicly available for people who are trying to do this advocacy work you were discussing, people who want to do, policy work in their local communities, or even just people who are, passionate about this issue and want to understand what it looks like on the ground in their own backyard. So Debris Tracker was originally developed in 2010 in collaboration with the NOAA Marine Debris Program. And originally the idea was to have an education app that really allowed people to look at what's happening on the coast and to collect data there. But as we've learned more about plastic pollution and learned more about how much it's driven by activities on land, there are estimates that probably about 80% of the plastic that's ending up in the ocean all is starting on land. And there are, several rivers around the world that are contributing huge amounts of plastic. So even wherever you are in the world, you're probably tied to a watershed that is in some way tied to the ocean. So plastic pollution that starts upstream can end up in the ocean or in other aquatic or terrestrial environments where it breaks down and can cause harm to wildlife. So we've evolved kind of through the course of that. And now Debris Tracker is really a project focused on looking at litter in communities around the world, whether you're on the coast or whether you're thousands of miles inland, it doesn't matter. It's all part of helping us get this bigger picture of what plastic pollution looks like.
Awesome, thanks. So I guess I want to know, what is the the weirdest piece of plastic that's been reported through Marine Debris Tracker? Is that something that Is that something that we can find out through Marine Debris Tracker?
You could. It would take a little bit of digging, though. We have over 3 million litter items logged, so I will admit that I have not looked through all of them. So I don't know what the weirdest litter item is. I do know the most common ones, which tend to be lightweight consumer plastics, like food plastics and tobacco products end up in the environment a lot. But no, I'm not sure the weirdest one. We do definitely have some interesting reportings. You can imagine with people tracking all around the world, you get a really big mix of the things that people are finding, which is another thing we're really passionate about, is that this local data collection allows for this variety of different kinds of data and really see what the situation looks like on the ground in your community and not somewhere else around the world.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's actually, I think, a really good segue to what Deja was talking about earlier with the food plastics. Have you seen an uptick of those with the pandemic? Have more people been logging them on Debris Tracker, or even logging like reusable masks that they see?
Yeah, so we did actually just there's a paper that very recently came out that used Debris Tracker data. So Justine Amendolia, who's a National Geographic explorer, worked with a couple other local partners and collected data in Toronto, Canada, kind of right when the pandemic initially started. Before, she was like a marine biologist studying plastic pollution in coastal environments, and then had to migrate to moving science to her own backyard. And they logged a ton of masks, disposable gloves, lots of kinds of PPE items. So they did a really cool job of capturing kind of how the items that we use in our daily lives started to emerge in the litter. As we started to use more of those kind of PPE items, we also started seeing them leak into the environment. So definitely check out her paper. Yeah.
Good to know. So going off of that, we have a pretty, and I know we need to get to our demo sometime soon. I think we'll demo and then go back to questions with some of our remaining time. I know we have quite a few people watching on YouTube. Don't forget, we're not ignoring you. You can put your questions in the comments there too. And same goes for our friends on Zoom. Feel free to put those in the chat. But I was wondering, we have a big audience of students for this series, especially students in North Carolina. What would you tell them about what they can do with citizen science generally and marine debris tracker specifically?
Yeah, I think the really exciting thing about citizen science is our project and all of these other, really cool citizen science projects out there, they really rely on people like students, like other researchers, like, really just engaged citizens getting involved in the project. I think people create citizen science projects because it's science we can't do without regular people getting involved. It's science we can't do without a community of people. And so I think that's really exciting and really, I don't know, for me, it's very inspiring that it's this kind of science that's really built on a big group of people coming together, or a big group of people saying, we care enough about this issue to go out and collect data in our community, or, if it's a different kind of citizen science project, do whatever that science effort calls for. But I think there's a really exciting opportunity to get to be part of a big effort and to get to work together with other people who care about an issue.
Awesome. I think that is a great point, and it's also a great segue into the project demo. How can we get involved in Marine Debris Tracker? How does it work? What do we need to do? Let us know.
Awesome. So I will hop on screen share here, and hopefully you guys can see my screen. So
Yep,
this
we can see it.
Awesome, perfect. So this is our debris tracker map. So I wanted to kind of do this a little backwards here and show you guys what happens after you log debris tracker data. So you can see we have a big list of lots of different organizations. These are all customized lists based on what people are seeing in their local litter area. So we partner with different organizations around the world. Some of them are in different languages. Some of them are just based on different items that people are seeing, if they're sampling on the coast or they're sampling inland. So all these are customized lists that we host for people. And then I'm just going to select all lists and we'll look at what shows up. We also have options to filter by different things here. So let's just say we'll look at the last couple months of data. I'm going to let this load here. This will be quite a lot of data because it's from all of our lists and all of our projects. So it should be somewhere around 100,000 litter items. Give it just a second. Here we go. All right. So this is what debris tracker data looks like. So after you go out in the field and with the app collect data, this is what it actually ends up looking like. So I'm going to zoom into this community called Jekyll Island, which is off the coast of Georgia. And we've done a lot of work with the Georgia Sea Turtle Center there. They've done a lot of recruiting local volunteers and who want to get involved in sea turtle research. They get them out collecting data on what plastic pollution looks like on the beach there in Jekyll. And they've actually published a paper where they overlaid where they were seeing plastic pollution in litter with where the sea turtle nesting sites were on the island to kind of identify risk there. But we can zoom in and we can see these individual litter items, like a plastic bottle cap, not surprising, plastic foam fragments. And then whatever we filtered the data by here, we can also look at by category. So we can see that, unsurprisingly, most of the items are plastic. And we can see that plastic and foam fragments, cigarettes, and plastic food wrappers are kind of taking the lead at the top of the list of items that we're seeing there. So that's what debris tracker data looks like. Let me pull up my other video and I will show you what it actually looks like to collect data. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. All right, so this is what the app looks like. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different organizations. We have one for NC State on here, and if you're tracking generally in the US, the NOAA list is a really good place to start. So you can also click the info button to learn more about a particular project, learn more about where they're trying to collect data. And so after you select a list, you'll see this list of different categories and different litter items. So you can hop between the categories. When you click on one, it jumps down, and you can use that little arrow in the bottom right hand corner to jump back to the top. And then you can add how many litter items you're seeing. So yeah, we have lots of different categories. We try to capture pretty much anything you would see in the environment, although there's also an other. So if you do see anything out of the ordinary, any one of those unique litter items, you can always add it as other, and then you can add a description here. This is also a great tool if you're doing your own kind of additional research and you're interested in things like what kind of color plastics are ending up in the environment or what size the fragments are. That description field is a great way to use the tool flexibly so you can collect a lot of additional data as well. The star adds items to your favorites, which is a customized kind of top items that you can curate based on what you're actually seeing while you're out collecting data. So then after you actually collect that, you'll see pinpoints of where that litter is, and then you can click submit to upload to our database. So if you don't have Wi-Fi or internet access for some reason, you can save the session, but otherwise you can go ahead and upload it and you'll get a thank you message. And that, in very brief summary, is what that looks like.
So I'm wondering, well, first of all, I love that it's an app because it makes it easy for people to go out and just click and let you know what you're seeing and kind of just log whatever they're seeing. But I'm wondering if you all collaborate with people who are doing like these beach cleanups. Like, is that a common partnership where you see people who are doing these beach cleanups actually using the app?
Yeah, definitely. Especially this year, we've seen a lot of groups who were doing kind of big collaborative beach cleanups have shifted to individual cleanups. So this is a great way for them to still be able to keep track of what their participants are collecting. We're working on a new tool online that will allow people to kind of bulk upload data. So, if you clean up a whole big area, you'll be able to just enter your total item counts for a big area. But the way the app is designed is really to help us pinpoint exactly where you're seeing the litter items. And it's harder to collect the data that way, certainly, but it really does allow for some really exciting research opportunities and potential, which is why we've done it that way. So by having those really specific GPS coordinates of exactly where you're seeing litter in your community, you can get into really granular levels of analysis, like looking at how litter from that particular area might flow into a waterway and then where that might end up, or what factors like infrastructure, like access to public trash cans or recycling bins, or the proximity to stores or land use or other kind of influencing factors. You can really get into the nitty gritty of why the litter is actually ending up in that location.
Yeah, that's really great. I could definitely see some, some community-based projects using Marine Debris Tracker where people in different locations, work together and figure out like what they're seeing, and then mapping out like where exactly they're seeing trash and how that compares to different communities. Like it seems really awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have like a release date to when the new version will be uploaded for these larger projects that people might want to do?
For the beach cleanup, we're hoping we'll get that live pretty early in 2021, but I'm hesitant to say a date right now because you know how things can go with web development especially. But yeah, we should have that up soon. We do have people who just do kind of bulk upload right now and email us coordinates and we can go in and update them. But yeah, right now we don't have a good way to kind of collect that aggregate level data at this point. But yeah, I'm excited to have that feature live because I think it will be helpful for people who are doing those big beach cleanups, as well as people who are, maybe collecting data with kids in a classroom and they're not able to try to track and watch after kids at the same time. It would allow people to use paper data cards and then go back and upload the data later.
So since we did mention the data, I'm wondering do you know what people have done with the data so far, or what types of results that we've been seeing?
Yeah, so we're actually working on some really exciting new materials, including a citizen science to action guide that'll kind of share some case studies of how different people have used the data. So that also will come early 2021. So I'm excited for that as well. But because we are working on that, I have some ideas off the top of my head. So I mentioned the PPE paper that recently came out. There was also the paper from the Georgia Sea Turtle Center that was published that looked at how debris correlated with sea turtle nesting sites. And we've also seen more kind of local action oriented items as well. So there's a group collecting in the Tobacco Cay Marine Station in Belize, and they, based on their data, were able to encourage the lodges on the island to burn less of their waste, which is cool. So yeah, we've kind of got the span of everything from, like actually, creating action to scientific research projects, and then educators also using it in their classrooms, which is really cool. One of my favorite stories is there's a National Geographic educator named Peg Kiner in Chicago. So very far inland, very far away from the ocean, but she got her classroom out collecting data with Debris Tracker. And then her fourth grade class actually got to present to like the United Nations Association in Chicago and share their results and talk about how they wanted to protect their watershed and had the data of what litter looks like in their community to back it up. So yeah.
Deja, you should meet up with Peg. You're both in Chicago. Well, in a socially distant fashion, perhaps do Debris Tracker,
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, and I love the story you just shared, Catherine. I just love that this, it must be so fulfilling on the project management side to see these, people participate in a project and then use it to even go as far as to, do some type of call to action and create some change in their communities. I mean, I think that's really awesome. Now, speaking of local projects, is there a list in North Carolina or that people can contribute to, or?
Yeah, so I mentioned the NOAA list is great for pretty much anywhere in North America. It is kind of it's NOAA, so it's geared towards North American debris more than other places in the world, but that's a great starting list. And then there is also an NC State list that I think they were using in some of the classes down there, but I think that list is also open and welcome for anybody to contribute to. So.
Awesome. So if you are a part of the NC State community, go on SciStarter, right, Caroline, and find that list, or the NCSU SciStarter homepage.
Yeah, we have it on our little sub page on the SciStarter NCSU page. I'll put that in the chat again, and I need to put it in the comments on YouTube for our friends over there. I love that you all make those lists. What's the process for making a list?
Yeah, so the lists are, like I said, they're customized, and we, try to give the organizations who are creating lists quite a bit of kind of back-end support to get some access to additional levels of data about how people are using their list and where they're using their list. So we really, we support these organizations kind of, they're collecting really valuable research data, and we support these organizations freely, but we like to make sure that people are going to have an ongoing sustained commitment. So that's really the only requirement. We have some kind of minimum tracking, annual tracking, and annual user requirements, but that's really it. But yeah, it pretty much the process is just to get in contact with us via email, and then go from there and seeing if if you need your own list, or if setting up a group account would meet your needs, or how to best move forward.
Awesome stuff. I always ask this question when we have guests on, but what's something about Debris Tracker that has surprised you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the thing that's been in the past couple years that's been both surprising and really exciting is how much it's really caught on with educators and students and classrooms. I think it's really fun. You know, we've definitely in the past targeted a more scientific audience. I work at a university. The app was developed in collaboration with the university, so that's our typical audience. But it's really cool to get to see, you know, kids exploring what litter looks like and then asking the questions about what they can do about it. I think that's so powerful. And so, you know, I think so many kids are more excited and more inspired to make change. You get old and cynical and stop thinking that your inputs matter, but there's so many kids who see this stuff in their environment and get excited about it and start looking for ways they can make change in their community. And I think that's really amazing.
I agree. And I think Marine Debris Tracker is a great way for them to get involved. I mean, it's so easy. All you need is your phone and your eyes and, you know, to be able to get out there. And it's even something, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a large group to do it. It's a very individual basis type of project. And so I guess I'm curious, was Marine Debris Tracker your introduction to citizen science, or were you working with another citizen science project at first? How did you get involved?
Yeah, it was actually. So I've been involved with Debris Tracker since 2013, so almost from the beginning. And yeah, I at first when I was a student at UGI, I was working on it kind of on a, you know, undergraduate research student assistant capacity, and then got to come back and now lead the project, which is really amazing. And yeah, I mean, I think I did you know, some litter cleanups and, you know, saw plastic pollution in the environment. I'm a scuba diver, so I you know, did some dives after rains, especially where you're floating through the water and you just see little fragments of plastic like floating out. It's like stars, but like depressing stars. But yeah, so I was, you know, really passionate about the issue of plastic pollution, and I think the idea that we can empower local people to make change in their own community while simultaneously building a really amazing global database that helps us understand what plastic pollution looks like and, you know, how it's changing and where the problem spots are. I think that's really it's just really exciting and inspiring for me.
Wow. I think that depressing stars comment, that was really, that kind of hit home for me.
Yeah.
Like it seems really, you know, really sad. You know, those, I guess those would be the microplastics that you're seeing kind of just littering the.
Yeah, more fragments. Microplastics are typically pretty hard to see visually, but lots of like fragments of plastic bags especially tend to kind of get suspended in the water column, and so you can just see them like floating. But that's, you know, that's the reason we need these upstream solutions. I mean, going back to the statistics you were talking through earlier about how much plastic is going into the ocean, I mean, that really does start on land, and that's why it's so critical to have this data collection on land.
Yeah, this is it. It's hard. One thing I've noticed about like environmental citizen science projects is they sometimes depress people. Especially, you know, when you think about plastic pollution or like the things that like dishearten us, or we feel like we're in a pandemic, we have to use plastic. What would be your message to people who might feel overwhelmed by the scope of the problem?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's definitely very easy. If you you know, write down everything you touch in a day that is plastic, you'll be amazed by the number of things that you come in contact with and you use on a daily basis that are plastic. And, you know, plastic, it really is, I think COVID especially has highlighted kind of, you know, the versatility and utility of plastic in a lot of ways, and, you know, how it's really cheap and easy to manufacture. And I think, you know, a lot of those things are the things that make plastic such a miracle material. It's, you know, so useful in a lot of different cases. It's so durable and lightweight. But those are the same things that make it really negative when it enters our environment. So I think we really have to think really specifically, not just about, because the plastic issue is huge and overwhelming, certainly, but thinking about what are the like problem items and what can we do, what interventions can we do to prevent those items from ending up in the environment. So every context that plastic is used in is not necessarily bad. There are lots of ways we use plastic that stay, we use them for years and years and years, and that's really not the problem. The problem is this single-use plastic that, we're touching for 5 minutes and then it's in the environment for potentially, forever. So I think that, that's really the area where we need to focus. And I think having better data to inform what that looks like in your community is really inspiring for change and inspiring to get other people on board with you. I think when you look at it as this big global issue, it can certainly be really overwhelming. But when you look at it as like, what can I do in my backyard to help with the plastic pollution we're seeing in the ground? Because most places in the world have some form of litter, some form of plastic pollution that's happening right in their own neighborhood. You don't have to solve the grandiose problem of the whole entire planet. If you can you can really start it with what's happening in your neighborhood.
Well said. And we actually had a comment in the chat. Someone said, that's a great challenge for our audience. Think about how many plastic things you touch during the day. We are definitely gonna do that for the NC State community. I have the power to message everyone who's ever visited that page on SciStarter, and I actually might ask them that question. Someone said, talk about depressing. No, but we have hope now. We can hone in on our community and hopefully make a difference. That gives me hope. I actually did debris tracker the other day. I went on a community cleanup in my neighborhood, and every time I grabbed something with my Garbo grabber, I logged it in the debris tracker app. So you can couple it with action.
Yeah, the first step to solving a problem is being more informed about the problem and actually knowing, whether that's how much plastic we touch in a day, how much plastic we're using on an individual basis, or how much plastic we're seeing in our local environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, Catherine, since you mentioned like policy change, has Marine Debris Tracker been used to implement policy change yet? And if it hasn't, is it possible to do that?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. We definitely have some organizations that are in the process of collecting data and are hoping to push for policy change. And we've seen examples of this type of data in the past that have been used to push for policy change. So one that comes to mind is Clean Ocean Access, which is an organization, a nonprofit in the Northeast. They've been collecting data on litter on the beaches there, and they got smoking cigarettes banned on I think about half of the towns in Rhode Island, which was really amazing. Because as you saw in our data set, that's certainly one of the items that we see showing up. So I think making it really specific really does empower for local change, because it, making it really clear that this is not just a problem that's somewhere else, it's on someone else's beach, that's on someone else's, in someone else's country. It really is right here in our own backyard, and so we need to address it. I think that kind of data really speaks to local policymakers.
Now, I will say, Chicago recently passed I think it was a citywide ordinance that now they're starting to charge for plastic bags if you want to take those home. And I'm not sure if that was because of Marine Debris Tracker, but it would have been really cool if it was. So if you all out there in the audience are thinking about participating, which we totally hope that you do, you could definitely have some cool impact on your own community. And so I guess one of my final questions that I have, or getting to the final questions, are, what's the next step for this project? What do you hope to see happen with Debris Tracker?
Yeah, I think we have two kind of big goals going forward. One is, like we've been talking about, continuing to just improve our app, improve our data platform, make it even easier for people to collect and empower people to collect data in their own community, and then to think about how to use that for action. So we're going to continue to build new features of how to like display and understand and process your data on the website. We're going to continue to make improvements with the app and make it easier for you to create projects and to get other people on board. So we're excited to continue that. I think that's really a really cool area of growth is having, you know, getting local people excited with just, you know, starting their own project. And then the other thing is simultaneously growing our database big enough for a really big macro analysis. So that's kind of the ultimate goal with Debris Tracker is really, you know, the plastic pollution problem is so big, it really requires a lot of data to begin to talk about global trends and global problems and what we're seeing at a global level, which is, again, this community data is exciting because it can, you know, make change at the local level, and then it's simultaneously informing this really big picture that we're hoping to be able to build of plastic pollution. But like I said, we have 3 million items logged, which is a good start, but we need a lot more to really be able to do that kind of comprehensive global level analysis.
I think that's a really rousing call to action. Catherine, is there anything else that you'd want the audience to know about Marine Debris Tracker that you haven't told them yet during this Q&A?
Ooh, I think we covered a lot of ground there. I think we got most of it. I guess the one thing I would emphasize is, you know, we talked a lot about some of these really like large scale projects that, you know, made policy change or published scientific papers, and you know, that stuff is really exciting. But if you just want to collect data on your morning walk, that also is really powerful in contributing to this bigger picture of plastic pollution. So we definitely make room for people at all ends of the spectrum here, whether you want to, you know, start your own project in your community, or whether you just you know, want to feel good that like you did your good deed for the day and contribute data while you're out for a walk. I think the flexibility of our platform is really exciting, and so I want to make sure that you don't have to start a plastic bag ban in your community. You can just record what you're seeing, and that's also really helpful.
I love it. Well, Catherine, I think we'll leave it here. Audience, thank you for being here, our friends on YouTube and our friends on Zoom. And if you're watching this recording later, just anyone who happens upon this in any way whatsoever, go to scistarter.org/NCSU-home. You can find instructions for how to participate in Marine Debris Tracker, as well as how to access that NC State list. And I know that we have a number of new members to the Wolfpack who might be watching this. This is a great way, if you're a student who wants to make a difference, you could really get out there, pound the pavement, and organize and really get some insights about your local community. So thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you to my co-host, Deja, Dr. Karen Cooper, who has always been such a champion for this work, and the whole NC State Citizen Science Campus. Have a good night, everybody.